here with the chat. So
Thank you.
So the number of participants is rising.
Yeah, and it should in principle even more.
Fine.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hello everyone.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, bonjour.
Good morning, everyone.
There are so many
Morning.
today.
Good morning.
Buongiorno.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning.
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 Good morning.
Morning.
Hello.
morning.
Good morning from Spain.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have a lot of
Morning,
familiar
everyone.
faces and a lot who we do not know, but this is great.
Calimera. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Bonjour à tous.
Bonjour à tous. Quelle bonne journée de revoir tout le monde.
C'est vrai. C'est ce qu'on ressent aussi. C'est une excellente manière de démarrer la journée.
Ah ouais, ouais.
Avec autant de monde.
Ça fait vraiment longtemps qu'on n'a pas vu tous ses collègues. Ça fait plaisir.
C'est presque un atelier MedPAN aujourd'hui. Hein. On a
Mais
autant de monde.
élargi un petit peu, avec des amis qui viennent d'ailleurs aussi.
Oui. Émilie, tu veux commencer à donner des instructions? Émilie, you want to start giving instructions?
Yeah, sure. Welcome, welcome everyone. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. So this webinar is available in French and in English. So before starting the interpretation, I will provide information on how to use it first in English and then in French. Donc le webinaire, il est disponible en français et en anglais. Avant de lancer l'interprétation, je vais vous expliquer comment utiliser cette fonction en anglais puis en français. So as soon as I will finish with my explanation, you will find below in the bar a button named Interpretation. You will need to click on the language you want to listen, and do not forget to turn off the original sound to avoid the background voice. If at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session you want to speak up, we will invite you to select the right channel. If you want to speak in English, select the English channel, and if you want to speak in French, select the French channel. Donc à la fin de mes explications, vous verrez dans la barre en bas de l'écran un bouton interprétation. Il vous suffira de cliquer sur français pour les francophones et de mettre en sourdine le son original pour éviter d'avoir deux personnes qui parlent en même temps. So we can launch the interpretation. So we invite you to change your pseudo and add your first name, last name, and organization to facilitate the work of the moderator. For any question or comments, please use the chat and talk in private with MDB technician for any technical issue. And if you have any question or comments regarding the guide, the turtle guide, you can type your questions in the chat, in the comment chat, and we will collect and gather all the common questions that we will answer during the dedicated times. If the time permits, you will have the opportunity to speak up at the end of the presentation. Please use the raise your hand function so we can give you the floor to make your comment. Puri, the floor is yours for an introduction about MedPAN.
Good morning. Bonjour. I'm going to begin to talk in English to follow the slides. Well, first of all, welcome everyone. We are really impressed by the number of people attending this little event. And, you know, not all of you are from the Mediterranean, so I identify here a lot of colleagues from our region and members of MedPAN and partners, but also people joining us from outside the Mediterranean borders, which are also very welcome. So maybe since not all of you are part of my MedPAN family, at least the immediate family, so I just want to do a brief introduction about what our network is. So MedPAN is a network of managers of marine protected areas that we have. Our main objective is to improve management effectiveness. So the main target of MedPAN is supporting the managers to do better, to help better to halt this loss of biodiversity. And our area of action is the Mediterranean Sea. So next slide. MedPAN today gathers 131 organizations. Some of them are managers, other are other kind of institutions that also have a relevant role supporting MPA management, but they are not in charge of the management of any site. So the overall MedPAN family includes people from 21 countries. So it's not bad because it's almost every country in the Mediterranean. And altogether, we consider that the responsibilities of those managers are over a total of more than 110 different MPAs also across all the region. Next slide. Let's go to the objective today, which is not to talk about MedPAN, but about one of the tools that MedPAN have developed to support a specific objective in management of MPAs, which is taking care of marine turtles. So the objective of this webinar is to introduce to all of you this guide that to facilitate its use by managers and other field actors, because not all marine turtles not only go to marine protected areas. Unfortunately, considering the low level of MPAs, most of the turtles are going to nest or develop their activities outside of the MPA. So many other actors are also very relevant to take care of this group of species. So all those actors that are involved with MPAs in marine turtles, monitoring, and other kind of conservation activities. So the agenda for today is have three main parts. The first part is this introduction to this MedPAN strategy for marine turtles monitoring and conservation. This is going to be presented by my colleagues Susan Gallon and Pierre Vigne. Then there is specifically in the presentation of the guide by ALan Rees, and then you will have also some opportunity for questions and or you express your queries and to have as well answers. So just to finalize, this I think this is for interest of everybody participating today. So now we are 104 people on board at this moment, but we have registered 120 different participants from 29 countries. So that means it's more than the number of countries of the Mediterranean, with a great diversity of profiles. So obviously, a big number of MPA managers, as well as different non-governmental organizations taking care of marine turtles, intergovernmental organizations, researchers, and other kinds of networks. So that here you have a figure that shows where people is coming from. So, and it seems that the winner is Tunisia, so that's great. But we have people from very far away, such people from Pakistan, I see here, which is really interesting, and people from Mexico, also far away, and New Caledonia. This is the winner in the distance, I suspect. So welcome everybody. And I must just say, because since there are people from outside, taking care of marine turtles is not just an issue in the Mediterranean, it's an issue everywhere in the world. So, and the methodologies are not so different and the challenges are not so different. So we are glad to share this guide. And for instance, MedPAN is also involved in a lot of transatlantic exchanges for marine protected areas management. And marine turtles is one also of the relevant topics for those exchanges of MedPAN outside of region. So welcome everyone. I just give the floor to my colleagues to present a little bit what's MedPAN strategy for marine turtles. Thank you.
Welcome everyone. So I will speak in English. And we're going to briefly give you an overview of what activities we are carrying out just now at MedPAN regarding the conservation of marine turtle. So MPAs and MPA networks can effectively contribute to the conservation of mobile species, such as marine turtles, when designated of a portion of habitat that are important for these species and have the potential to be delineated for management, for conservation. In addition, as you know, the species don't know any border. They travel around, and that is committing MPAs to ecological solidarity and collaboration beyond the border of the MPAs and across the Mediterranean. Active collaboration is thus essential to allow an integrated monitoring and conservation strategy for this species. Based on the 2020 status of Mediterranean MPA that we carried out this year, out of the 276 responses we had, 34 sites across the Mediterranean are designated for marine turtle conservation, and 29 have specific conservation measures. Thus, to implement an integrated management strategy for this species across the Med, since 2017, MedPAN has been developing and supporting activities that brings together both MPA manager and many partners across the Med. Our ongoing activities that are all supported by MedPAN Marine Turtle Working Group that was created in 2017 are focused around 3 axes. One is on knowledge, because we need to improve that knowledge because it provides the baseline data to develop and to support our conservation strategies for this species. And that can be through the MPA database or the status of MPA. Another key axis is building capacities that contribute to scale up site protection across Mediterranean MPAs and beyond, such as experience sharing workshop, exchange visit, best practice, and also the guide we're going to present you today. And the third main axis is to advocate at regional and international level to secure the long-term buy-in for sea turtle conservation, such as policy recommendation, etc. And thus, to carry out those activities, we closely collaborate with key regional partners around the Mediterranean, such as the SPARAC, WWF Med, IUCN Med, the PIM initiative, and many more. And those activities are currently being implemented through 3 main projects. The first one is the MPA network that will help achieve effectively managed MPA by providing sustainable solution for MPAs. Another key project is the MAVA Regional Coordinated Project for the conservation of sea turtle in the Mediterranean region. And the third project we wanted to mention is the COGITO project that contributes to improve an integrated and sustainable management of coastal and insular MPA in the Mediterranean.
Bonjour à tous. Je terminerai, je compléterai cette présentation de ma collègue Suzanne en français pour changer un petit peu. On souhaitait terminer cette introduction rapide en donnant un éclairage particulier sur le programme régulier de formation du réseau MedPAN que nous mettons en œuvre progressivement aujourd'hui avec nos partenaires. Donc, les 3 projets que Suzanne vient de citer sont très importants parce qu'ils nous donnent aujourd'hui des moyens pour mettre en œuvre cette composante qui est une composante essentielle de notre stratégie de renforcement de capacité. Jusqu'à présent, le soutien technique aux AMP dans notre réseau s'incarnait déjà donc dans une gamme d'outils que Suzanne a cités, comprenant cet atelier annuel d'échange d'expérience, chaque année sur une thématique de gestion différente, des visites d'échange techniques, donc de terrain, des publications de guides pratiques comme celui qui va donc vous être présenté aujourd'hui, des tutos vidéo et d'autres outils. Mais cette composante de formation qui est donc portée dans le cadre d'un programme que nous souhaitons permanent et régulier vient compléter ce dispositif de renforcement de capacité en le dotant d'un axe beaucoup plus opérationnel sur lequel on souhaitait s'inscrire. Donc, au-delà de l'échange d'expériences qui, donc jusque-là, était, on va dire, le principal ressort de notre stratégie de renforcement de capacité et qui, bien entendu, à travers toutes ces activités, va conserver sa place dans cette stratégie. Il s'agit ici, avec ces formations, de soutenir le développement de compétences très opérationnelles pour les gestionnaires et au-delà des gestionnaires, pour tous les acteurs qui travaillent avec les AMP sur la base de besoins qui sont clairement identifiés. Et donc, avec des perspectives, c'est ce qu'on entend par opérationnel, des perspectives concrètes et des perspectives à court terme de mise en œuvre des acquis des formations. Donc, pour l'essentiel, ce qui est résumé sur cette slide, c'est que cette approche de ce programme régulier de formation est centrée, d'une part, sur une offre de formation à vocation très opérationnelle, sur une approche partenariale. Donc, ce qu'on entend par là, c'est une approche coordonnée avec les partenaires méditerranéens, que je ne vais pas citer, mais qui sont nombreux et qui ont eux-mêmes une offre de formation. L'idée étant bien sûr, d'une part, de ne pas réinventer la roue, et puis bien sûr aussi de s'inscrire ensemble dans des synergies avec, à terme, on l'espère, l'idée de coordonner un catalogue régional commun de formation pour les aires marines protégées. Donc, ce programme, comme vous le voyez sur cette slide, est mis en œuvre progressivement dans 5 aires marines protégées autour du bassin, qui donc chacune agissent comme un pôle ou un centre de formation, donc pas uniquement comme des bases logistiques, mais qui contribuent à travers leur expérience au développement du contenu technique des modules. Et donc, un programme qui, comme c'est dit ici, est mis graduellement en œuvre depuis 2019, avec un focus sur plusieurs thématiques qui sont des thématiques sur lesquelles on met l'accent dans notre stratégie actuelle. Bien sûr, ce n'est pas exhaustif de ce qu'on souhaite faire à l'avenir, mais pour l'instant, on travaille plus particulièrement sur la pêche, le financement, les cétacés et donc les tortues marines, bien entendu. Et donc, avec pour chacune de ces thématiques, plusieurs modules aménagés dans l'idée de mettre en place un parcours pédagogique qui permet une montée en puissance des capacités des gestionnaires. Sur ce programme de formation, donc, les tortues sont donc fortement concernées puisque nous développons 2 modules en collaboration avec le Parc national marin de Zakynthos, qui donc sont accueillis dans cette première période, ces modules de formation à Zakynthos, qui, comme vous le savez tous, est un site de nidification extrêmement important en Méditerranée, mais qui pourront à terme, bien sûr, être aussi accueillis ailleurs. Vous avez vu sur la slide précédente, par exemple, que l'aire marine côtière protégée des Curiates en Tunisie, qui est aussi un site à tortues, fait partie de ce dispositif et donc sera tout à fait susceptible d'accueillir ces formations. Donc, on a développé d'ores et déjà un premier module qui est axé sur la conservation des tortues dans leurs habitats marins, et on sait que pour les aires marines protégées, celles-ci sont relativement peu expérimentées et outillées dans ce domaine, donc c'est particulièrement important. Une première session de ce module était prévue cette année, pour des raisons que je ne vais pas préciser, on les connaît tous, c'est même plus la peine de les répéter. Ce module sera reprogrammé en 2021, et un module axé terrestre, donc avec un axe sur les sites de nidification, viendra compléter ce premier module, et il sera également mis en œuvre l'an prochain à Zakynthos. Donc, moi, je terminerai simplement en soulignant ce qui est visible aussi ici, pour dire que nous avons reçu un très grand nombre de candidatures pour cette première formation, 90 au total, ce qui d'ailleurs reflète bien aussi la participation qu'on a aujourd'hui. On est sur un sujet qui intéresse beaucoup les AMP, qui démontre donc aussi un besoin qui est très large à notre échelle régionale de formation sur le monitoring et sur la gestion et sur la conservation des tortues. Donc, 90 candidatures pour une formation qui a comme parti pris d'accueillir des petits groupes, une douzaine de participants. Évidemment, vous vous en doutez, l'exercice de la sélection est toujours compliqué. On a essayé, pour cette sélection, pour cette première session, de donner la priorité à des aires marines protégées et à des acteurs impliqués donc dans le suivi, la gestion, aux côtés des aires marines protégées, qui démontraient un besoin concret et puis des perspectives de mise en œuvre des acquis de la formation à relativement court terme. Un certain nombre d'entre vous ici ont posé leur candidature. Alors, ne vous désespérez pas, bien sûr, c'est le message aujourd'hui. Si vous n'avez pas été sélectionné, vos candidatures seront à nouveau considérées pour de futures sessions. C'est tout l'enjeu qui est souligné ici d'un programme régulier de formation. C'est de répéter ces formations pour répondre à un besoin dont on voit bien qu'il concerne de très nombreuses AMP et qu'il est récurrent. Donc, ces formations sont construites en cohérence avec le guide, qui va vous être présenté maintenant par son auteur, ALan Rees, qui est aussi, je le mentionne, l'architecte du premier module de formation que nous mettons en œuvre, et à qui je vais donc avoir le plaisir de passer maintenant la parole. Et en lui passant la parole, le temps que ALan, je pense qu'il faut que donc je ne partage plus mon écran, et pour qu'ALan puisse prendre le relais de son côté et piloter ses slides. Et je profite de ce temps de transition juste pour vous indiquer que c'est, comme Émilie, notre collègue Émilie vous le disait, si vous avez des questions, on est très nombreux aujourd'hui, donc le temps un peu interactif de questions et réponses qu'on a prévu et qu'on prévoit toujours, bien sûr, à la suite de la présentation, pour le faciliter, on vous recommande de partager vos questions dans le chat et on fera de notre mieux pour rassembler celles qui se ressemblent un peu et essayer d'animer derrière une discussion avec vous. Je vous remercie et Alan, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you for the kind introduction. Yeah, I'm ALan Rees and I'll be presenting this guide that I've compiled over the last few months. To those of you that don't know me, hi, I'm ALan Rees. I've been working with sea turtles in the Mediterranean since 1994, mainly in Greece, where I have a long-standing association with ALan. But I've also worked as an independent sea turtle expert consultant for the last 15 years. My main research interests involve the biology and ecology of male turtles, studying the populations of sea turtles that are found in Ambrachikos Gulf in Greece, as shown in this picture of me here with a green turtle that we caught this autumn, and the use of transmitters and drones to acquire data for turtle conservation. For those of you that do know me, hi, it's nice to see you again. I'm not sure that I'm going to use up all my time for this 45 minutes for this presentation, so we should have a lot more time for questions at the end. But from the outset of compiling this guide, my aim was to produce a document that was functional, one that will actually be used for those entering the field of turtle management and conservation, and not simply to produce something that stays as an unopened PDF on people's drives. I trust I've delivered such a document. But if you do have any feedback for improvements, etc., please feel free to email Susan Gallant and myself at the addresses shown on the screen. I'm not sure how much of an option there is to revise the current edition of the guide, but there will be updates to the guide at some later date, and I would personally find the feedback useful for any similar future projects that I embark upon. That said, let's move right on to the guide, how to structure it, and how to use it. After all, that's why we're all here. I'd like to think that the guide is straightforward and clear to use, but there is obviously an interest in seeing it presented as everyone is here now. My presentation is built around the contents of the guide with examples or snippets from each practical section to assist in understanding how to proceed. Everything needs an introduction, and this guide is no exception. One standout feature here is that I list several key documents for further reading. This guide should be enough for a manager to make good start at turtle conservation, but it is never a bad thing to read more on the subject. Next, it's Marine Turtle Facts, a Turtle Biology 101, so you know what your options may be, followed by a chapter that's in line with this webinar on how to use this guide. Following this, there's a section on getting baseline data as a foundation for further work, and this is then followed by the core part of the guide, a suite of decision trees that indicate what monitoring and management protocols should be adopted to get the data needed for effective management. Next are the monitoring and research protocols themselves, developed as numbered fact sheets. And lastly, there's a section on what to do with the data you've collected. There are two annexes, the first being the key protocol fact sheets, and the second is an example data record sheet that can act as a reference for the user to design their own version of the sheet in their own language. Diving into the guide, as I showed, it starts with the section on marine turtle facts. Knowing about turtle biology will help the manager understand the situation they are presented with in their local area. For example, when we talk about marine turtles in the Mediterranean, there are two key species that we should know about. There's the loggerhead turtle here on the left, with its brown-red carapace and a relatively big head with strong jaws that it uses to crunch its prey, that includes mollusks and crustaceans. And then there's the green turtle with its olive-colored carapace and relatively small head with a serrated beak used to snip at its diet of seagrass and algae. There are three other species of hard-shelled turtle that have been recorded in the Mediterranean, but none of them have more than about 2 to 5 records of each. So if you encounter one of them, it would be quite a rare event. Both the loggerhead and green turtles have similar life histories. The hatchlings, shown on the bottom left, hatch out of their eggs, and then they swim into the open ocean where they mature over a number of years until they settle as benthic feeders in shallow coastal waters known as foraging areas. Once mature, the turtles migrate back to their natal area to mate and breed every few years. Females remain in the breeding area for a month or more to lay a series of clutches at approximately 2-week intervals, whereas the males return to the foraging areas at the start of nesting season as females are no longer receptive. It's been shown that adult female turtles in the Med can breed for at least 30 years. They're long-lived creatures. Loggerhead green and green turtle nesting mostly occurs in the Eastern Mediterranean, shown here with loggerhead nesting in red and green turtle nesting in, no surprises, green. Knowing this will help the manager understand what species of turtle may be breeding on the shores of their protected area. However, it should be noted, as shown here, that nesting in the Western and Central Mediterranean is now occurring in low but increasing numbers, most notably in Italy, Spain, and Malta. This is probably due to the effects of climate change, and ideally managers should plan to register emerging and potential nesting areas to stop any further environmental degradation at those locations. Now that you know your animals, the guide moves on to help you know the guide. There are several basic questions that the guide helps you find answers to, which are fundamental to effective management. Where are the turtles in and around my protected area? Are there hotspots in the MPA? What are the relative importance of different parts of the MPA? Knowing the answer to these questions allows planning for spatially explicit management measures. When are the turtles in and around my MPA? Knowing that the turtles are there year-round, only in summer, or only during seasonal migrations allows effective temporal management measures to be put in place. Why are the turtles in and around my protected area? Knowing that they are there in a development ground, adult foraging habitat, migratory corridor, or breeding site further adds to the potential management options and suggests links to other locations. There are other key questions that need to be answered, such as, are the turtles safe? Have the threats to turtles been identified and quantified within the MPA? And leading on from this, what are the trends in numbers of turtles? Obviously, decreasing numbers of turtles is generally not a good sign, but stable or increasing numbers is. And acquiring these numbers can only be achieved by conducting appropriate monitoring programs. Armed with these questions that you need to answer, you set about acquiring baseline data on turtle presence at your site, which once sufficiently garnered will, through the use of the guide's decision trees, lead you to a set of protocols to follow. And these protocols then inform your management options to ensure that you are best looking after the turtles present. Just to recap, first you acquire your baseline data. Next, you use the guide's decision trees to identify a course of actions. Gather the data following the indicated protocols. You establish relevant management measures based on the conditions specific to your site. And then you continue monitoring your turtles whilst applying and enforcing the protection measures that you have seen suitable for your location. So looking at the first step of the process, what baseline data should be sought and how to get it? Baseline data comes in the form of indications of turtle presence, and indicators of turtle presence are likely to come from observations from the beach or near the coast. And all observations need to be reported to the MPA at this time of finding baseline data. Adult females and baby turtles leave characteristic tracks on the beach from nesting or hatching that can be readily observed. This is one kind of indicator that you have turtles in your MPA. Likewise, a lucky person may see a nesting turtle on the beach or hatchlings heading to the sea at night time. They are another indicator that you have turtles. And less lucky is the potential to observe a dead or injured turtle washed up on the coast, known as a stranding. All these three types of observation are clear indicators that there are turtles in the MPA that require protection. So how do you go about getting this baseline data? The guide lists 4 ways to acquire this baseline data in order of increasing effort. Firstly, there's the internet. Internet searches can reveal records of turtles in the area in scientific and general literature. And a step up from this is a search on social media for evidence of turtles in the area. And indeed, you can use social media to ask of reports from the public of turtle sightings. On the screen, you can see a report from Greece showing that there is loggerhead turtles near a place called Amphilochia. In this case, we knew it was a turtle. It is a turtle foraging area, so it's not too much of a surprise, but it just shows you how social media can help. So next step is interviewing stakeholders such as coastal residents and fishers. This helps gather first-hand accounts of turtle presence and may help build a rapport between the management body and the local community. And lastly, there are field surveys. Anytime that a field management team is in the field, for any reason, this can be considered a field survey. And even negative observations of sea turtle presence are useful indicators of the distribution and importance of a location for sea turtles. If you go out on the beach in the summer and there's no tracks, that's as important as going out and finding some tracks on the beach. If you're out in a boat looking for something, if there's turtles around, it's important to record it. Once a certain level of information has been gathered, it is time to focus on the core of the guide, the decision trees, that will lead the investigator to the most appropriate course of action. In the guide, there are 3 decision tree clades based on investigative perspective. The first is based on what may be necessary to considering the habitats present in the MPA. For example, MPAs with coasts may need to consider turtle nesting as well as the at-sea presence of turtles. Everybody on mute. The second is based on MPA capacity, with what can be done internally by the MPA team and where outside assistance should be sought. And thirdly, the decision trees based on management objectives, such as protecting nests or monitoring and protecting turtles in nearshore habitats. As worked examples, we shall look at the decision trees based on MPA habitat and management objectives. Here is a habitat decision tree in all its glory from page 38 of the guide. The decision-making process starts at the blue box, halfway up on the left. I hope all of you had a quick chance to look through the guide before you've attended this webinar and hopefully had a bit of an idea what you're in for. Here it is with only the upper part of the tree. We start by asking ourselves, where are the turtles? And to keep us focused on this part of the page, we must answer either we don't know or on the coast. Taking the first response, we don't know, effectively sends us back to school with the tree indicating we should continue to acquire more baseline data so that we can then answer the initial question in a positive manner. The next response, on the coast, leads us to the question, the reason there. If the turtles are on the coast, it would be for either or both of the answers, stranding or nesting. So it's possible to continue along both sections in turn. Let's say for now that the turtles are there to breed, and we are then asked how many nests, which can be answered as sporadic nesting or regular nesting. Assuming we only have sporadic nesting, we are told ad hoc patrols and reporting is necessary. And then to the right, we are shown which of the protocols are suggested to be followed, listed under the general themes for data collection. In this case, it's nest counts and threats. Just so you understand, the H protocols refer to protocols that deal with turtle habitat. A protocols are those that deal with animals themselves or their nests, and the T and M protocols are those dealing with threats and management. And also protocols in dark text are those fundamental protocols that should be carried out for all levels of monitoring and management. And the other protocols are those that can be carried out where time and resources permit. There will be more on this later when we discuss the protocols themselves. Back to the start of the habitat decision tree, and we can follow the process of what's to be done when the turtles are at the sea. There are three answers to where at sea, and the first one being on the coast. This may seem illogical, but in this instance, the turtles are on the coast stranded, meaning that they are not there intentionally, but they are there in the marine park for some other reason than nesting. The other habitats are near shore and offshore, and let's choose near shore and see where that takes us. Now we are asked if they are common in the nearshore waters. If yes, then shore-based drone and in-water surveys are recommended together with fisheries and other boat-based data recording. If no, then only fisheries and other boat-based data collection methods are indicated, as more intensive surveying is excessive for the amount of presence that would be the amount of presence data that would be gathered. And lastly, the protocols on animals present and the threats they face are presented for you to follow. Again, the dark type protocols and the numbers, which are the protocol numbers, are essential ones, and the pale ones are others that can be adopted where applicable. Now let's look at the management decision trees. This tree comes in two levels. The main one is shown here, and the derivative ones based on the management field being considered. Once again, we start on the left with our main question, are turtle populations okay? And if the answer is yes, excellent. Monitoring should continue as is, and you can contemplating upping your game, taking on additional research activities. If the answer is not a definitive yes, then we progress to the next question. Are turtles nesting? If the answer is known, unknown, top marks for those not noticing the deliberate spelling mistake, we are sent off to acquire this knowledge. If the answer is yes, we get sent to the second level of the decision tree covering nesting. After this, and if we answer no to nesting, we are asked, are the turtles under threat at sea? Again, unknown sends us back to the school. So unknown sends us back to school to learn the answer to each question. And yes sends us to the second level decision tree on management at sea. And a no sends us to the third and final question, are turtles habitats under threat? To which there is similar three outcomes. From our example here, we'll go forward with the at sea threats section of the decision tree. Starting once again on the left, we follow the same process, heading right along the decision tree, in this case, contemplating a different threat at each step of the way. Fishing, boating, and pollution, etc. Now, hopefully these walkthroughs have clarified any issues you may have had with following these decision trees, But if you're still befuddled in any way, don't forget that you can pose a question in the Zoom chat and we'll deal with them at the end of my presentation. Now we've seen that there are a number of protocols to be followed on each theme and that not all protocols are regular as regarded as essential. So this guide walks us through the rationale between the different levels of protocol adoption. The number of protocols to be followed for a given situation is based on the relevant importance of that situation and the requirements to obtain data that effectively support management in specific circumstances. There are essential minimum standards, that gather basic data required to gain a fundamental understanding of management issues and population status in the area. And then these are a subset of protocols that contribute towards a gold standard, where additional detailed data collection and research activities are undertaken to gain useful demographic and ecological data on turtles present that may further aid conservation in the MPA and contribute to our understanding about turtles across the region. Each protocol has been designed as a standalone fact sheet that clearly explains its purpose and how it links with other protocols. And each fact sheet is formatted into a consistent template. It's not an exciting slide, this one, just text, but it's a list of all the components of the protocol fact sheets, which I will briefly run through now. Most of these should be self-explanatory, but I will elaborate on them anyway. So here we got the protocols. This is what each one is made up of. Starts with a name, which is a descriptive name of the protocol and tells the reader what they are looking at. A standard is a 3-tier system that indicates the typical protocols as a 1-star up to gold standard protocols as 3 stars. There's an additional diamond standard that indicates protocols to help gather exceptional data, such as monitoring plastic ingestion by sea turtles or 3D mapping nesting beaches using drones. Topic is the grouping of the protocol, whether it deals with habitat, animals, or threats and management. Remember the H, A, and TM that I told you about earlier. And the reason and context give short and more complete explanations of the purpose of the protocol. Associated protocols are protocols that may be associated with the current protocol. And I'll say more on this through our worked examples coming up next. Equipment lists what is needed to be completed to complete the protocol, excluding a notebook and pen, which are required in some way for all the protocols. Manpower indicates how many people are required to complete the protocol, and cost is a 5-band rough estimation of the cost of implementing the protocol. With the more euro symbols, the more the cost. Frequency is how often a protocol should be carried out, and actions are what must be done to carry out the protocol. Ethics lists any ethical considerations raised by the protocol, and data to record prescribes what data are collected during the protocol's actions. Management relevance, which is important for a management guide, indicates how the data collected can inform management decisions for improved conservation. And then the reporting suggests ways that data from the protocol should be presented and reported to make them useful for the MPA managers and turtle researchers. Collaboration potential indicates the suitability of completing the protocol's requirements by the MPA's team of staff or the use of external collaborators and how data should be shared if collaborators are used. And finally, references is a list of scientific papers, reports, and other documents that are used to compile the protocol. That was a very dry slide, and obviously I got a dry mouth, but sure it will all become clearer now if we look at some examples. So I've chosen a basic protocol and a more complex one to work through with you all. So here we have protocol number 2, measuring turtles. It's one of the most basic and universal field techniques used by sea turtle researchers. You can see at the top there, it's a 1-star protocol, so that it is used extensively. And there are great list of other protocols with which this is associated, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. And they're all basically any protocol which deals with interacting with an turtle itself. It only takes 1 or 2 people to measure a turtle, and cost is cheap as tape measures and calipers are relatively inexpensive. Frequency given here is on encounter with the turtle, as you encounter turtles at any time and not to any set schedule. Whoops, excuse me. The protocol then instructs the reader how to take valid and repeatable carapace measurements with relevant diagrams and images. Page 2 of the protocol instructs the reader to also record the less commonly noted tail length, which is useful for being able to sex the turtle. As research on male turtles is one of my personal interests, I cannot highlight enough the importance of gathering data on tail lengths where possible, especially for different life stages of green turtles, as this information is completely lacking for that species. The ethics following this protocol are mainly based on the fact that the user will be interacting with an endangered species, and permits to do this are usually required. Data recording and how to report on these data are presented in the relevant sections, and the management relevance indicates that understanding the size distribution of turtles encountered and changes to this distribution can imply changes to the population structure of turtles in the MPA, which means something's happening, either an increase or a decrease. Contrasting with the turtle measuring, we now have a beach mapping protocol, which is a diamond exceptional protocol for additional data collection. Again, there are a list of associated protocols relevant to this one, and the mapping should be carried out by a team of 2 to 3 people. Cost is moderate, as drones and software required to complete this task are not, the cost of drones and software required to complete this task are not insubstantial. Here, the frequency of the protocol is given to set schedule, as this is a survey that's done at predefined times. The purpose of this protocol, as indicated in the reason and context sections, is to develop 2D and 3D maps of the nesting areas that can be used as evidence of changes to nesting habitat over time and for modeling the impacts of climate change on beach suitability for nesting. I give a selection of drone manufacturers from whom the reader can research drone models to meet their requirements. And I get a brief outline of actions required to complete the mapping flights, and map creation is given with reference to a paper that can supply more precise methodology. The ethics associated with this kind of work are mainly to do with the sharing of photographs and images with people that are identified in them, and this should not be done. And the data recorded are the images that require archiving on hard drives, because you make a lot of data when you're doing drone surveys. So the management relevance of this protocol includes evidence gathering for nearshore development and beach use that can be used for enforcement. The images presented, there we go. The images presented show that the improvement of image resolution that's capable by using contemporary drone acquired data shown on the right compared to historic data such as the Google Earth image of the same location presented on the left. Reporting of this data is best covered in a visual manner, presenting annotated maps, etc. And for collaboration, the data can be gathered by third-party organizations associated with the MPA, where MPA staff do not have the required qualifications or capacity to fly the drones, and the process to analyze the resulting data. So looking back at the decision trees, we recall that a number of protocols are recommended to be undertaken for each topic. This is a set of protocols recommended for monitoring nesting that's presented in the habitat tree. Remember, the dark numbers are those considered basic or standard protocols, and the pale ones are additional ones. And so here are all the protocols recommended under type A for dealing with animals and their nests, and let's see how each one fits in. We start with species number 1, species ID, and that is an essential, and number 2, they're essential protocols which are necessary to give you an idea of what turtles you've got in your area and what size classes you've got. Species ID is very important. You don't want to mix up your loggerheads with your green turtles, as they both require different amounts of conservation. 4, 5, and 6, pit tagging, flipper tagging, photo ID. They are all non-essential protocols, but very useful for building up individual identities and histories for turtles, which is useful for understanding the demographic parameters of your turtle. And number 7, tissue sampling, again, not essential, but taking an archive tissue sample is great for turtles because you can understand lots about them, if their diet, and their association within the bigger metapopulation of the Mediterranean. So we've got lots more to go through. Number 8 is nest and track identification, very basic protocol for nesting areas. You need to see what the track is, which species of turtle has made the track, and if there's going to be a nest on it, or whether the turtle didn't lay any eggs on that emergence. And then the location of clutches is quite essential when you need to put protection measures on or around the eggs. And there you might identify the clutch is in a dangerous area and you need to relocate it. So that's to a safer spot. And that's protocol, essential protocol 10. And the essential protocol 11 indicates that you know how to protect animals against predation, because dogs and foxes are common predators in sea turtle nests in the Mediterranean. When the nest is hatched, you need to identify that so that you can check that it's been successful. And then after it's hatched, excavate the clutch to count the number of eggs in there and assess the success rate, so to see how well your eggs are doing, and also to understand if there are any problems that the clutches are experiencing in the beach. These are all based around beach surveys on the ground. You need to actually get on the beach to see what's going on with turtle nesting. The next two protocols, 25 and 26, about repairing problems. So if your nest is inundated or predated, these two protocols tell you how to deal with that, so that the clutches and any eggs that are left can still successfully incubate through to hatching. And then 27 is the protocol on how to handle and record hatchling disorientation, because lights in the area of nesting beaches can draw baby turtles away from the sea, and hence they don't recruit to the population. So this essential protocol helps you deal with making sure that they do get to the sea and contribute to the next generation of turtles. And then finally, we've got two protocols. Pollution, you can measure pollution on the nesting beaches. And also when you've got a good handle on what's going on with your population, you've got the diamond protocol, which is deploying animal-mounted data gathering and tracking equipment. So you can satellite track or GSM track or whatever a turtle to find out when it's not at your nesting area where it goes. And this is useful for management in general of turtle populations. So those are all the protocols associated with protocol type A to do with nesting under the habitats decision tree. So what to do with the data collected? As indicated, the guide advises in each protocol how the data gathered can be put to use for monitoring and enforcement, and thus achieve management goals as indicated at the time of action. However, data should also be used in a more long-term and outward-facing way. For example, especially in the face of climate change and other progressive anthropogenic factors, the MPA zonation and monitoring schemes should be reviewed periodically and revised according to the most up-to-date, reliable scientific data available. And this is from the MPA's own monitoring actions. For example, turtles may change their preferred in-water habitats in nearshore breeding areas, and marine park zoning should reflect the actual distribution of turtles to afford the most effective protection against threats and pressures. I am not suggesting that this review and revision should be carried out annual basis or even every decade, but the concept that the marine park environment, turtle distribution and marine park zoning are not fixed or permanent should be part of the manager's mindset. Secondly, the guide suggests to make the most of the data collected by not keeping it to yourself. Instead, the data should be shared with other researchers through regional or global initiatives, such as those undertaken by the Marine Turtle Specialist Group. For example, the Marine Turtle Specialist Group is currently compiling data relevant to the IUCN Red List determination in regional reports that contain data chapters from each country bordering the Mediterranean. Data sharing can be achieved through sharing unpublished reports with the country chapter authors, or better still, through publication in peer-reviewed scientific articles. And to make the most of your data sets, which may comprise relatively small sample sizes, your data can be shared with subject specialists. They can combine data sets and produce more authoritative analyses on their specialist topics, which can be something like population genetics or tracking behavioral studies. Okay, this concludes my overview of this just published guide, and I hope it has helped you understand your understanding of how it is being compiled and how it should be used. Studying the information in the guide and following the prescribed course of actions that are indicated in the relevant decision trees will not make the reader an expert on sea turtles, but the guide is written in a way to provide the reader with sufficient detail to be able to effectively manage turtles present in their location and place their efforts in the context of a regional setting. But remember, you are not alone in starting out protecting sea turtles, and there is an active community to which you can turn to for advice and assistance. Use this guide to help steer your path, but do not hesitate to seek specific personal advice on topics for which help is needed. That's the end of my presentation. There's some sponsors for the guide here. You can see, and I'd just like to thank you for attending this webinar. We should now have time for questions. And to start with, we'll go to the questions posed in the chat, if there are any, during my presentation of the guide. If you have time at the end, as said, individuals may be given the floor to comment and ask questions that have not already been covered. And I believe it's over to Emily now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, for this presentation, and thank you all for following us. It was challenging to present a guide like this on a webinar, but you did a great job, Alan. Thank you. I also want to let you know this guide, you hear about it for the last half an hour. It's been a working project for the last 3 years. It's been challenging. And why this guide? Because when we created the Marine Turtle Working Group with the support of the Zakynthos Natural Marine Park, there was tools out there for MPA managers, over like information, guide for monitoring marine turtle. But the reality and the feedback we had from you guys was that it was not enough. It was not targeting for MPA managers. And that's what we tried to achieve throughout the last 3 years, asking for the advice of the managers of the Marine Turtle Working Group. So really a big thank you to all of you guys that, spend quite hours in meetings, providing feedback on, are the decision tree answering your question, are the protocol covering your needs? And it's not perfect, far from it, but we hope, it's a step further to answering your needs. And any feedback and the question we're going to share between and among us today is going to help us, getting better at providing you with the tools you need. So please, don't hesitate to ask questions and to let us know, things that we can still improve and make better for you. So Emily already put together some questions, so we'll go through them and hopefully cover most of them in the next half an hour. Thank you again. So Emilia had a quick look at the question, and maybe one that I'm happy maybe addressing first is the one that was in the chat by Carlos Carreras from the University of Barcelona. And so I'm going to read it to you all again. Carlos was saying that he saw that many participants were from countries with no high numbers of nests, particularly in the Western Mediterranean, but there are now experiences the presence of more nesting, potentially as a result of colonization. And he pointed out that those MPA might be the most in need of information and training because they are not used to the presence of these species. So he was wondering if in those places we shouldn't need to gather as much information as possible on those nests. And this is a really interesting question because when we developed this guide, mainly it was to address the needs of MPA managers nesting site with lots of turtle, the most important nesting site in the Mediterranean. That's historically how the Marine Turtle Working Group was designated and MedPAN. In between, we also aware that it's a new challenge for many MPAs in the Western Mediterranean. And we've got just now a MedPAN small project that the lead is in Spain. It's called Coordinating Monitoring and Management of Sea Turtle Nesting Activity in the Western Mediterranean through MPA. And they're actually doing a great job just now reviewing that guide, and they're going to provide maybe additional information on the protocols, additional guidelines that we can then share among the network and hopefully improve this guide in the future. Apparently there was lots of keen discussion on what is regular nesting and sporadic nesting, and the thresholds are not the same if you manager of an MPA in Greece or in Spain, and what you need to do as a manager are different from what is your context. So I thank you for this question, and please share if you've got any comments on that that you want to point out. We can maybe discuss more. Then,
je peux rajouter peut-être, puisque les formations étaient évoquées, que on doit prendre en compte toutes les situations méditerranéennes et bien entendu celles également de ces sites de l'ouest de la Méditerranée, comme tu le disais Suzanne, où se rencontrent des phénomènes de nidification sporadique qui donc certes restent des petits sites à l'échelle régionale, mais où ces nidifications sporadiques se répètent d'année en année depuis ces dernières années. Donc peut-être que dans cette discussion, certains d'entre vous qui sont concernés, je pense au parc régional de Camargue, où je sais que c'est le cas, peuvent aussi réagir, mais vos besoins, ce sera en tout cas notre attention, seront pris en compte, y compris s'il s'agit d'adapter une session de formation particulière pour répondre aux besoins de ces sites. Si on passe, tu veux, Suzanne, passer à une autre question qui nous a été posée?
Oui. So I will continue in English to make sure the translator can follow me. So there was a question from Ant Barn about easily accessible database to acquire safe baseline data. That's also a key topic we've been discussing with the Marine Turtle Working Group, but not only, also with partners on many different projects. How do we know what is happening where? As Alan mentioned, there are like some expert group that are gathering data, like the IUCN and the Marine Turtle Specialist Group that often, share information through their SWOT publication, and they have a database, and I think you're more than welcome to contact them to see how much and how they can share those databases. But yeah, I would say that IUCN might be the main point of contact regarding regionally what turtles are doing. But again, they may have not access to everything, and there's the need to have this regional overview is well discussed just now among partners. And I know that for stranding, there's a work in progress to try and see, if stranding data could be like regionalized among the Mediterranean. That would be great. And actually, it goes with one of the question of stranding about is it a good indicator for marine turtle? Maybe Alan, you want to answer that question regarding stranding being a good indicator for the presence of turtle, and if not, what are the good indicator of the presence of turtle?
Excuse me. Yes, well, strandings, you need to look at the stranding and see the condition of the animal that is washed up. If it's freshly dead and intact, then that would suggest that the turtle's only recently dead and hence not traveled far or long in water. And so that would, a fresh dead turtle on your coast stranded would indicate that yes, the coastal areas are, there are turtles present there. If you get a near skeleton washing up on your beach, that turtle could have drifted a long way. There are scientific ways of modeling with particles to find out where things turning up on beaches have possibly come from, which you can do, but that's very complicated method. So strandings, yeah, if you know the age of how long the stranding turtle has been dead or injured, then that can be a good indicator. But it's not really any replacement of speaking with people in the area, people that use the sea to know, get information from them to find out if they do encounter turtles. Local fishers are in the water all the time. And if you have a good relation with them, they'll be able to tell you, yes, they see turtles once in a while, every year, or every day they go out. So strandings can be useful as general indicators, especially if changes in stranding numbers can indicate things are changing, like a sudden. Also, yes, so strandings, turtles might turn up injured. So if you get a sudden influx of turtles with head injuries washing up on your shore, then you know that something is going on with someone not very happy with turtles in the area, and you need to investigate. So yeah, strandings have their place. Oh. Thank you.
We've got Livia.
Yeah, so yeah, they're definitely useful, but you need to look at with caution at what information you get for them.
And the other question was that if there's no stranding, what other indicators of the presence of turtle can you use?
At sea, as I said, you need to speak with people that are using the water. So that'll be fishermen in the area. I don't know if there might be ferry boats passing along, or that kind of commercial traffic. You can check. You can have volunteers sitting on the ferry for a few times, following the route, looking out for turtles. That's another way of looking for them at sea, especially further offshore. And also you get some idea from other people's tracking data. For example, all the nesting turtles that have been tracked in Greece and Cyprus, they go off to places up to 2,000 kilometers away from from where the nesting is. And you can see that they have highlighted some spots, especially along North Africa, which are important for sea turtles, which weren't really known beforehand because the turtles are there at sea. And the tracking from the nesting areas has indicated these are important marine hotspots.
Et alors, justement, Alan, si je peux, je ne sais pas jusqu'à quel point ça perturbe nos traductrices de switcher d'une langue à l'autre, mais c'est pour aussi assurer l'équilibre. Cette question qui a été posée nous vient de collègues d'Algérie, de Madame Moulay Taous du CNL, du Commissariat national du littoral en Algérie. On a reçu énormément de candidatures des collègues algériens et pour ce qu'on a compris donc, une stratégie, un projet donc de développement d'un réseau pour le suivi et la conservation des tortues au niveau national est en cours en Algérie. Donc là aussi, j'en profite pour faire passer ce message en direct pour dire que c'est face aux très nombreuses demandes en formation que vous avez fait parvenir, il faudra qu'on en discute ensemble pour voir comment bien répondre à ce besoin que vous avez au niveau national. Et cette question, justement, puisqu'il y a plusieurs questions, concerne aussi l'état des connaissances en termes d'habitat, de zones de reproduction, notamment pour les tortues marines, en Algérie. Est-ce que Alan ou quelqu'un a des éléments de réponse?
We might have some Algerian people here. My understanding of Algerian waters is that there is a very narrow coastal strip of shallow water, unlike the Tunisian shelf or the Adriatic. So turtles generally in the Algerian area are oceanic and they're circling around in wide open spaces. And I've got that information from tracking data from turtles I've tracked from Greece. But yes, we've had at least one nest in Algeria recorded recently, and the turtles do come quite close to shore. So there is opportunity of again, if the coast is long and inaccessible, then it's better to focus on surveys of people, I would say, that use the sea to find out how often they're encountering turtles, and also what happens with them if they do encounter a turtle. So that would be my suggestion for Algeria.
Thank you. I think Mouloud Ben Abdi said that he could answer for Algeria. Do you want to take the floor?
Oui, effectivement. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Dr Ben Abdi de l'Algérie. Je suis le coordinateur national des activités tortues marines accrédité par le ministère de l'Environnement et je travaille pour le compte du SPARAC. Alors, pour revenir à la question qui a été posée par rapport à ce qu'il y a de l'activité tortue, effectivement, il y a eu une première nidification qui a été signalée. Le nid a été détecté en 2017. La publication date de 2020, 2020. Donc, effectivement, il y a de l'activité de nidification en Algérie. Il y a effectivement un autre article en 2020 qui parle des échouages. On a enregistré sur cet article, dont je suis moi-même co-auteur, près de 63 échouages sur la côte algérienne d'est en ouest, sur une longueur de côte de 1622 km. Un plan d'action national est en passe d'être réalisé en collaboration avec le SPARAC et le ministère de l'Environnement, où nous utilisons pas mal de protocoles identifiés dans le présent guide et que nous avons déjà déployés sur le terrain pour caractériser les plages. Nous avons réalisé quelques enquêtes. Nous avons également réalisé 2 formations pour le renforcement des capacités, notamment pour le personnel du CNL, qui est l'organisme en charge de la gestion du littoral et qui est bien déployé sur l'ensemble de la côte. Il y a également beaucoup d'acteurs de la société civile qui manifestent un intérêt certain pour la problématique des tortues marines et qui nous aident énormément à déployer ce réseau de surveillance qui est en passe d'être installé. Donc, il est déjà en cours et il est en passe de s'organiser plus. Et la participation, nous avons eu également des collaborations internationales, notamment avec l'association Notre Grand Bleu de Tunisie et le réseau nord-africain lancement des tortues marines. Donc, une activité assez intense concernant les tortues marines s'installe d'ores et déjà en Algérie et on sollicite la collaboration de tout le monde, et les nationaux et les régionaux, pour développer cette activité. Merci.
Merci. Thank you, Mouloud, for this further information. Thanks a lot. We're going to move to another topic that I just saw on the list of questions. So first, another comment from Carlos that will help us, actually address the next question I had in my mind. So Carlos pointed out that depending on the country regulation, permits will be needed to manipulate the animals and or need to be manipulated only by experts. In his opinions, it's something important to consider, and we totally agree, and we hope that we address that, because in the protocol of the guide, there's a section on ethics where we try to point out any kind of protocols that may require a permit to do that, or that only like experts or people that know about should be carrying out that protocol. So, but again, any comments are welcome if you think we missed some important ethical issue in those protocols. And this brings to the next question, that's from Pierre Moisson, that is asking, is flipper tagging still a good option? Maybe Alan, you can try and answer that, or share your point of view. I'm not sure we've got a straight answer.
Yes, flipper tagging is still a good option, but since 1983, there's been something known as the flipper tagging reflex, that, oh, I've got some turtles, let's go out and flipper tag them. That's not necessarily the best thing to do. If you're going to embark on a flipper tagging program, you need to have some goals in advance of doing that. So you need to know, am I flipper tagging because it's a nesting turtle and I want to see it come back on the beach again, and know that it's how often it's coming on the beach, either within a season or between seasons. Or if I'm going to be working in a foraging area, I want to flipper tag turtles to get an understanding of how long they're in there. If you just sporadically or occasionally see a turtle and acquire it, then the possibly flipper tagging has no real benefit, because the chances of learning anything from that one individual are very low. But if there are high chances that you will get to see that turtle again, then yeah, flipper tagging is definitely a technique to be used. If you have a bit of extra money, then pit tagging is a great way to combine flipper tagging, because pit tags are generally longer lasting than external flipper tags. So if you can combine both, then you get you can give a turtle that you encounter a long-term ID through pit tagging, but also have the opportunity that if other people see your turtle with an external tag, then they can report it back to you wherever they see it. So that's my opinion there.
Thank you, Alan. And I've just been reminded by Laurent, director of Zakynthos Nature Marine Park, that permits are needed for all protected species. So this is important to remember. Thank you, Laurent. And another question regarding fisheries. Rafik is asking if there's some fisheries that are more that impact more marine turtle than others. So like some type of fishery or gear that may impact more marine turtle than others. And is there some kind of study or result on that say which fishery are bigger impact than others? Alan, are you aware of any of those work, or if anyone else knows something about that, please do share your knowledge.
I think there are quite a few people that may have been doing studies on this, but I remember Paolo Casale from Italy and the MTSG. He published an overview, I think, of turtle bycatch in the Mediterranean possibly 9 years ago now. And that, I think, also indicated ways of reducing bycatch. So it is known how bycatch and fisheries affect turtles. I can't give you any specific examples, but there is documentation available. So if you Google Casale and Bycatch, then you should be able to retrieve some documents, as I know they're available on the web.
Great. We also have an offer from Imed Shribi to maybe share some knowledge on that. Imed?
Oui, est-ce que vous m'entendez?
On t'entend pas très fort.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Oui, vas-y.
Oui, tout à fait.
Image, je crois qu'on a un souci parce qu'on ne t'entend pas beaucoup. Ça fait que de couper, je pense.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez maintenant?
Oui.
Oui.
D'accord. Bonjour tout le monde et merci pour ce webinaire. Juste, j'ai voulu intervenir pour la question concernant la pêche. Pour dire que pratiquement tous les engins de pêche ont un impact sur les tortues, mais il y en a des engins qui sont plus impactants. Et là, surtout lorsque l'engin ne permet pas à la tortue de monter à la surface pour respirer. Et essentiellement, ça va toucher ça touche essentiellement les filets maillons qui restent pendant 2 nuits, 1 nuit ou bien plus en mer sans être ramenés à bord après. Donc, si une tortue est capturée, après 1 heure, elle va suffoquer et mourir. Donc, ça, c'est un très grand problème. Et pour certains engins de pêche, on peut atteindre des mortalités, des taux de mortalité qui arrivent jusqu'à 90% et 100%. Il y a les chaluts aussi. Si les traits de chalut sont assez longs, donc il y a un très grand risque pour que les tortues suffoquent et mourir. Les palangres de fond qui restent près du fond aussi ont un impact très important. Les palangres de surface un peu moins parce que la tortue peut arriver à la surface pour respirer même si elle est attrapée. Et donc l'impact de pêche est très important et à mon sens pour la conservation des tortues marines c'est le problème majeur à l'échelle régionale et à l'échelle globale. Merci.
Thank you, Imed. Merci, Imed.
I saw that Suzanne Yaniv Levy was raising hand, but I do not see your hand anymore, Yaniv. But if you had a question or wanted to make a comment, please feel free to do so. And if not, Yaniv, if any of you has questions that you want to share, we have we can allow ourselves a couple of minutes, I think, of course.
Yeah, there's also an interesting comment about Tim Abre from DMAD that is commenting on the fact that we have lots of interest for the training session, but not enough space to satisfy everyone in one go. And is asking if we are considering a virtual training course. So we are considering virtual training course and all kinds of tools for training purposes. But we also believe that some training are best shared through a practical session in small group to really address key learning experience in some ways. So I think just now we're working on it, and we'll I think in the training program we're going to develop based on the guide and other tools, there will be a range of way to share those training. And those can be through practical session in small groups that, as Pierre mentioned, will be repeated over time to hopefully be able to answer the needs of the managers, but also maybe through also a virtual training session of a format Also, we're thinking of developing more video tutorials to also complement the offers regarding training. So everything is considered through that program. And Pierre, don't hesitate
just to
to
say
complement.
that yes, in the current period, of course, if we can get a little benefit out of this period where we are not able to meet and hold activities in presence, at least this is to think a little more out of the box and try to innovate as much as we can, even though there are limitations whenever trainings have a strong field component. Jakub Kaska, you are raising your hand, please.
Well, thank you and congratulations for all of you bringing all this information together. Actually, I think it will be very useful document for all the turtle people in the Mediterranean. And regarding the training, actually, we hosted one of the training at the Kamer organized by the RATSPA. And if there are more candidates, I would be very happy to host some of them at least. To be with us in the summer and ready to host and help them if they are really interested in. And as probably know, in Dalian, if they come in time, they can see maybe 10, 20 turtle nesting in the single night. And if they come during the hatching period, they can see again in the same number, even more hatching in the same night. Then they can have even in 1 or 2 days time, they can have enough experience to handle how to handle if they see a nest in their country in a sporadic region and so on. And in other thing regarding there was already some comments by Carlos and the others as well, but I think people should be aware of the IUCN Marine Turtle Specialist Group. We are ready to help any of them in the Mediterranean. Some of us here in this group, and Aliki from Greece, Sandra and Paolo from Italy, and myself are co-chairing this or co-editing this reporting. And every year we are asking if you have further information. And the next year will be the last year to be updated before get it published. So every 10 years, we are planning to publish it. So I see now there are some nests, some strandings and so on. So please provide such information so that we can include under your countries in this country in the next year. Did I share my screen or this is somebody else?
I'm not sure who is sharing its screen just now.
Anyway, it's good to share, no matter what it is, but the knowledge is the best thing that we can share. Thank you again for everyone for participation.
Thanks a lot, Jakub. Thanks a lot. And I think we're reaching the end of the time we allocated for this webinar. And I see there's still a few questions there that we haven't answered, but I hope you will understand that we have to close at some point, and it was great to share that with you and get all your feedback. And again, you know, like don't hesitate to send comments or anything by emails for us to take into account, both for the guide, but for the training session, for everything. Also to share information, to, you know, sharing is key, as Jakub just said. Pierre, est-ce qu'il y a d'autres choses?
No, sorry, I think I'm in English. Maybe to remind, even though I think we mentioned already that the guide is currently being translated in a French version. So of course, we will let you know as soon as this version will be available. Obviously, it will be available from the MedPAN website. And I think that's about it for us. And we can maybe leave the last words to our president, Purificación Canals. Puri?
Okay, one moment. I need to select the language issue. Just very last words, because I think we are out of time. But thank you very much to all of you. First of all, the MedPAN team for organizing, but especially to Alan for the impressive work in the guide and in the presentation. I think that both are really good, the guide, of course, but the presentation today to really show how we can take as much advantage as possible of this tool. It has been really, really interesting. And thank you, of course, of all of you that will be the users and the ones that making the difference for this interesting species in our Mediterranean. Thanks to all of you, and please don't hesitate to go back to us for any questions or also your experience when you apply the guide. Thanks so much. Merci beaucoup à tous.
Thank you everyone. Thanks to our favorite interpreters also, Laura and Susanna. Thanks to the technicians and to everyone.